When we think of high-tech criminals, we often associate them with individuals possessing extraordinary intelligence, advanced education, and exceptional specialized skills. These perpetrators often commit crimes without leaving any trace, shrouded in an aura of terrifying mystery. Today, we will examine a representative high-tech crime case that caused an uproar across China. On September 11th, 2003, coinciding with the Mid-Autumn Festival in Suzhou City, Jiangsu Province, a renowned heart surgeon named Gu Xiying received an urgent phone call. The call delivered devastating news. His daughter, Gu Xi, had suffered a heart attack, stopped breathing, and was undergoing emergency treatment at the hospital. Around 10:20 p.m. that night, Dr. Xiying rushed to the hospital. As he entered the emergency room, he saw his daughter lying weakly on the hospital bed. Despite calling in a team of specialists and exhausting every effort to save her, it was all in vain. After 2 relentless hours of trying, Dr. Xiying realized there was no hope of saving his daughter. This high-tech criminal had robbed Gu Xi of her life, leaving a profound and irreparable loss for her family. The hospital was enveloped in grief and despair. Qiu Xiaoqiang, Gu Xi's husband, lay beside his wife's body, overcome with inconsolable sorrow. At that moment, Dr. Xiying, the director of the cardiothoracic surgery department at Suzhou Medical College Hospital, was overwhelmed. His son-in-law, Qiu Xiaoqiang, also a renowned surgeon whom he had personally trained, was equally devastated. 2 years earlier, Gu Xi had mentioned to her father that she often felt a persistent pain in her chest. However, no one could have anticipated that this discomfort would ultimately lead to her tragic and untimely death. Even though both Dr. Xiying and Qiu Xiaoqiang were skilled and respected physicians, but they could not pinpoint the cause of her cardiac symptoms. The situation became even stranger when Gu Xi passed away with symptoms including abdominal bloating, bruising on her body, dilated pupils, and signs of vomiting. Dr. Xiying began to suspect that his daughter's death might not be merely due to a heart attack. He questioned whether a type of toxin might have affected her heart. Consequently, he collected samples of his daughter's vomit and carefully packed them to send to the Suzhou Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Around 3 a.m. the following day, Dr. Xiying privately called his son-in-law, Qiu Xiaoqiang, for a conversation. He emphasized that both of them were doctors and that Gu Xi's death was an abnormal case. He believed Qiu Xiaoqiang was capable of diagnosing and treating the condition in time. However, Qiu Xiaoqiang only replied that his wife had died of a heart attack, while his expression grew increasingly confused and pale. Determined to uncover the truth, Dr. Xiying insisted on an autopsy. Upon hearing this, Qiu Xiaoqiang's demeanor immediately became dejected. He collapsed to the ground, clutching his head and clenching his teeth, repeatedly exclaiming that he had no idea what had happened. His mental state began to deteriorate following his wife's death. Dr. Xiying, though uncertain if he himself was being influenced, resolved to seek clarity through the autopsy. The following day, on September 13th, all the necessary procedures were completed and forensic doctors arrived to conduct the autopsy. At 8 p.m., just as investigators were about to begin the procedure, Qiu Xiaoqiang suddenly grew agitated. He shouted, "Everyone, leave! I can't bear to see my wife endure more pain." However, since the procedures had already been registered, the doctors could not abandon the process. Qiu Xiaoqiang unexpectedly pleaded with his father-in-law to halt the autopsy, acting clumsily and even shouting angrily, "Gu Xi is dead, and you still want to make her suffer?" Nevertheless, Dr. Xiying remained adamant about proceeding with the autopsy, leading to a heated argument between the two. Qiu Xiaoqiang dropped to his knees, clutching the forensic doctor's legs tightly, desperately trying to stop the autopsy. Eventually, others had to drag Qiu Xiaoqiang away from the scene. The autopsy proceeded as per protocol, and following its conclusion, the body was cremated. Qiu Xiaoqiang's unusual behavior during the process caught the attention of the police, as they understood that obstructing the autopsy equated to hindering the pursuit of truth. A secret investigation into Qiu Xiaoqiang began immediately while awaiting the final autopsy results. During the investigation, police discovered that Qiu Xiaoqiang quickly seemed to recover from the grief of losing his wife and eagerly began dating multiple women. The final autopsy results confirmed the presence of the medical anesthetic ketamine in Gu Xi's body. Combined with her pathological symptoms, The cause of death was determined to be heart failure caused by ketamine use. It became evident that Gu Si's sudden illness was not natural. Instead, all evidence pointed to a serious criminal case. Ketamine, a general anesthetic commonly used in surgeries, became the focal point of the investigation. When injected intravenously or intramuscularly, ketamine rapidly induces unconsciousness. However, improper use can lead to adverse reactions such as high blood pressure, increased intracranial pressure, and other complications. It is strictly contraindicated for patients with heart failure or hypertension. Notably, ketamine is an odorless and invisible anesthetic, making it particularly dangerous when misused. Improper administration can cause cardiac fibrosis and, in extreme cases, death. The police quickly reached a critical conclusion. Gu Si had not eaten anything before returning home that day, indicating that someone had administered ketamine at home. Only Chiu Xiaoqiang, her husband and a surgeon, had the ability to access ketamine from the hospital. Within 10 minutes of ketamine ingestion, toxic reactions would have occurred. However, Chiu Xiaoqiang delayed, taking his wife to the hospital for 2 hours, raising suspicions that he had deliberately withheld aid. Based on this evidence, the police expanded their investigation and discovered that Chiu Xiaoqiang had been lax in managing and using anesthetics at the hospital. Records revealed that Chiu Xiaoqiang had withdrawn anesthetics multiple times, but it was unclear whether they had been used in surgeries. He had secretly entered the operating room to steal anesthetics without being caught, making him the prime suspect. 12 days later, on the night of September 23rd, police arrested Chiu Xiaoqiang at his home and detained him for further investigation. As the investigation deepened, the police revealed that Chiu Xiaoqiang had grown up in poverty. However, through determination and effort, his life had changed. After graduating in 1993, Chiu Xiaoqiang was assigned to work at a county hospital in Suzhou. He faced numerous challenges in his job, and his salary was only average. Nevertheless, Chiu Xiaoqiang resolved to continue learning and striving for success. In 1994, Chiu Xiaoqiang was admitted to the School of Medicine at Suzhou University as a graduate student. During his university studies, he met his mentor, the renowned cardiac surgeon Gu Si. Dr. Gu was highly respected and well-connected in the medical field. Chiu Xiaoqiang realized that fostering a good relationship with his mentor could secure him future opportunities. From then on, Chiu Xiaoqiang seized every chance to impress, becoming more ambitious and driven than ever. Through professionalism and relentless effort, Chiu Xiaoqiang earned Dr. Gu's recognition. Dr. Gu acknowledged Chiu Xiaoqiang's talent and dedication, and he quickly became a highly regarded figure in the field. On the surface, this young man Chiu Zaiqiang talent and charm. He always appeared well-groomed, charismatic, and conducted himself with refined manners. After extended interaction, Dr. Gu found Chiu Xiaoqiang to be trustworthy and commendable in every aspect. Gradually, the two developed a close and strong bond, not only in professional settings. Chiu Xiaoqiang also attended important medical conferences with Dr. Gu Si, who often invited him home for dinner. Chiu Xiaoqiang left a strong positive impression on everyone in the family. With his scholarly appearance and stable personality, Chiu Xiaoqiang caught the attention of Gu Si, Dr. Gu's eldest daughter. Both were 26 years old, and Gu Si, having been well-educated since childhood, was known for her kindness. She couldn't hide her affection for Chiu Xiaoqiang, a confident and ambitious student. The two spent time getting to know each other, and their bond deepened over time. Dr. Gu decided to help the young couple move closer together. Chiu Xiaoqiang understood that if he wanted a future with Gu Si, he had to sacrifice many things, including his long-term relationship with his former girlfriend. After breaking up with his ex, Chiu Xiaoqiang became friendlier with Gu Si, and their feelings for each other grew stronger with each passing day. Chiu Xiaoqiang decided to pursue Gu Si, and the two became a couple. While opinions varied on the reasons behind their relationship, but their love only grew deeper. In 1996, Chiu Xiaoqiang and Gu Si married, starting their life together in Suzhou's high-tech zone. They appeared happy and affectionate, with Chiu Xiaoqiang caring for Gu Si attentively, earning him a reputation as an exemplary husband, so Dr. Gu placed great trust in him. With his father-in-law's support, Chiu Xiaoqiang, now part of a happy family, transitioned from a county hospital to a major city hospital. His exceptional medical skills and professionalism quickly earned him admiration. making him a respected doctor. Qiu Xiaoqiang's career continued to develop steadily and successfully. For years after their marriage, the couple welcomed their first daughter, adding sweetness to their already happy life. However, beneath the harmonious and warm exterior, cracks began to form. In early 2001, a trainee nurse joined Qiu Xiaoqiang's department. Through workplace interactions, Qiu Xiaoqiang developed a favorable impression of her. A promising young doctor with a bright future, Qiu Xiaoqiang was admired by the young nurse for his success. This admiration sparked a new love story between them. As their feelings grew deeper, they began flirting, marking the start of an extramarital affair. Around the same time, Zhang, a talented female doctor from a prestigious county hospital, joined Qiu Xiaoqiang's medical team. Working together at the hospital, Qiu Xiaoqiang's brilliance once again garnered admiration. Zhang, too, became attracted to him, and their relationship quickly grew close. While Qiu Xiaoqiang began involving himself with multiple lovers, his relationship with Zhang became particularly significant. Zhang even pressured him to divorce his wife to be with her. Qiu Xiaoqiang secretly brought his lover home on multiple occasions, but when Gu Si found out, he always managed to keep silent with various excuses. As a wife, Gu Si couldn't ignore these suspicions, yet she chose not to confide in her father or confront her husband directly. By then, Qiu Xiaoqiang had become obsessed with his new lover, viewing Gu Si as an obstacle in his life. Divorce, however, was out of the question. Qiu Xiaoqiang knew that his career and family were tightly linked, as all thanks to his father-in-law's influence and reputation. If their relationship broke down, his future would be ruined. He also feared losing the chance to have a beautiful wife again. In short, the cost of a divorce was too high and chaotic. Thus, Qiu Xiaoqiang devised a cruel plan to eliminate his wife while preserving his wealth and status. The plan was a prolonged and secretive murder scheme aimed at ensuring Gu Si's complete disappearance. As a surgeon, Qiu Xiaoqiang possessed in-depth knowledge of anesthetics and their dangers. He decided to use ketamine, an anesthetic, to execute his plan. Taking advantage of his hospital position, Qiu Xiaoqiang illicitly acquired the drug multiple times. Afterward, Qiu Xiaoqiang mixed anesthetic drugs into his wife's water and beverages. He always thoughtfully brought tea and water to his wife, adding small doses of the drug each time to avoid raising suspicion. As a result, Gu Si began experiencing heart problems. She frequently felt unwell and had to visit doctors. Each time she fell ill, Qiu Xiaoqiang pretended to treat her and assured her she had recovered after a simple drip. Qiu Xiaoqiang used this opportunity to spread rumors about his wife's heart condition. When Gu Si's illnesses and medical checkups showed no abnormalities, Qiu Xiaoqiang decided it was time to execute the final part of his plan. In August 2003, he stole 8 vials of ketamine, each containing 100 milligrams from the hospital's operating room. On September 5th, Qiu Xiaoqiang dissolved 3 vials into a pre-made cup of coffee for his wife. While at the hospital, he called her and invited her to drink the coffee. As a result, Gu Si quickly suffered a heart attack and fell into critical condition. Qiu Xiaoqiang immediately called the hospital, but did not return home. However, this time, Gu Si survived after emergency treatment as the drug dose was insufficient to be fatal. Following this failed attempt, Qiu Xiaoqiang sought another opportunity to kill his wife. 6 days later, on September 11th, during the Mid-Autumn Festival, Qiu Xiaoqiang repeated his previous plan, deciding to increase the drug dosage. At 8 p.m., he poured the remaining 5 vials of ketamine into coffee. After Gu Si drank it, she experienced severe breathing difficulties and became critically ill. This time, Qiu Xiaoqiang was present at the scene and helped move Gu Si to the bedroom to rest. As he watched his wife struggle in pain, Qiu Xiaoqiang pretended to comfort her while secretly washing the coffee cup on the spot. He monitored her condition for 2 hours, deliberately delaying any action. When Qiu Xiaoqiang realized Gu Si was on the verge of death, he finally rushed her to the hospital for emergency care. He then called her family, including her father. This time, Gu Si could not escape her tragic fate. On December 17, 2003, more than 3 months later, the Suzhou People's Court held a public trial. Qiu Xiaoqiang, the defendant in the case, reversed his earlier statements and denied all crimes committed before September 11th. He claimed that he had spent most of his time at the hospital and had no opportunity to commit the crime. Chiu Xiaoqiang insisted he had promptly performed rescue actions when the incident occurred. After 6 tense hours of trial, the judge announced that sentencing would take place on January 2nd, 2004, at around 10 a.m. on that day. The full verdict was read. Dr. Chiu Xiaoqiang was sentenced to death for invisibly murdering his wife using anesthetic drugs. Over 2 years, Chiu Xiaoqiang had used his professional expertise to systematically harm his wife's body with anesthetics, leaving everyone bewildered. No one could have imagined the extent of Chiu Xiaoqiang's cruelty. During the trial, Chiu Xiaoqiang argued that his relationship with Gu Si had been poor and that she had a hot temper and treated his family poorly. Initially dissatisfied with Gu Si, Chiu Xiaoqiang eventually started an affair. His growing discontent fueled his intention to kill his wife. Even Chiu Xiaoqiang's parents testified, stating that his marriage to Gu Si had been a mistake. Everyone was shocked by the statements from Chiu Xiaoqiang's family. They believed Chiu Xiaoqiang had schemed to climb the big tree of Gu Si's family, ultimately gaining the reputation and wealth he had desired. This story is truly a real-life tragedy. What are your thoughts on today's case?
Drug traffickers are among the most despicable individuals in the world. They build their lavish lives on the suffering of others, even on the breakdown of other families. Yet their lives are often marked by strange colors and contain many thrilling experiences that are both shocking and thought-provoking. The main character in this story is an extreme example of such a legendary villain. He was once the biggest drug lord in Panama, an ally in life and death with notorious Colombian drug lords such as Blanco, Escobar, and the Ochoa brothers. He was also the commander-in-chief of the National Guard and the director of Panama's intelligence and anti-drug agency, the supreme spiritual leader of the nation. A military dictator who ruled over a territory until he was overthrown by the USA military commanded by George Bush. He was a top foreign agent trained by the CIA and collaborated for many years, receiving direct orders from former CIA Director George Bush. At the same time, he was a close friend of Fidel Castro, USA sworn enemy, and sold many important pieces of information to USA intelligence agencies. When he was obedient to the USA government turned a blind eye to all his crimes, such as drug trafficking, kidnapping, and murder. However, when he began to push the USA out of the Panama Canal for national interests, George Bush did not hesitate to resort to internal cleansing, perhaps even to silence him as he knew too many truths. His existence had become too dangerous for some in the USA government. If his life were made into a film, it would be an intense spy action movie, combining courage and cowardice, betrayal and loyalty and grudges and hatred. It would be a film about drug smuggling, political assassination, terrorism, and thrilling warfare. He is the only drug lord in the world who has ever been a head of state, the most powerful source of information in the history of human intelligence, a mastermind in political maneuvering, and a man who exposed the false face of USA, a cunning villain named Manuel Noriega. Noriega was an intelligence genius, evident from the day he was born, as even the CIA did not know his exact birth year. Born into a poor family, his parents died when he was just 5 years old, leaving him an orphan raised by his grandmother. From a young age, Noriega set out on a path of knowledge to change his fate. He worked hard to gain admission to the best high school in Panama, the National Institute. There, he joined a socialist youth group and wrote many critiques of USA colonization of Panama. Upon graduating, he wrote a life plan on the school boat with dreams of becoming a psychologist, becoming the president of Panama, and driving the USA out of the Panama Canal area. Why did Noriega harbor such a deep hatred for USAs from a young age? This hatred stemmed from the fact that the USA monopolized the Panama Canal and manipulated the Panama province after it separated from Colombia. During the exploration period, Magellan proposed to the Spanish king to build a canal in the narrow isthmus of Panama to connect the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. This idea aimed to facilitate the quick transportation of plundered assets from the Pacific coast to Spain. However, Spain weakened and unable to carry out the project, saw the USA seize the opportunity after Panama broke away from Spanish colonial rule and became a province of Colombia. Colombia was the first country to start the canal project, but after nearly 30 years, they had only dug 1/3 of it, and the company undertaking the project went bankrupt. The USA immediately jumped in and declared their intention to take over. However, Colombia disagreed, and the USA, angered, incited tensions between the Panama province and Colombia, encouraging the Panamanian people to pursue democracy and freedom. In November 1903, the USA pushed Panama to declare independence. Colombia sent troops to suppress the rebellion, but was defeated by the USA military and forced to cede the territory. After Panama's independence, the USA and Panama signed the Habonao-Varia Treaty, granting USA perpetual and exclusive ownership of the Panama Canal area. In return, Panama received $10 million and an additional $250,000 annually starting 9 years later. Panama ceded a 10-mile wide strip of land to serve as the Canal Zone, which the USA took over permanently and exercised sovereignty over. Thus, Panama became a dependent state of the USA, and USA capitalists built the Panama Canal at the cost of countless local workers' lives, including masons and laborers. The canal essentially became an overseas territory of the USA, fueling Noriega's determination, from a young age, to drive out the USA. However, Noriega was not a revolutionary with steadfast beliefs. His ambitions were clearly priced. From a young age, he became a speculator solely focused on money. During high school, while Noriega participated in progressive student movements, he also received money from the CIA. The USA turned him into a spy, providing information about student movements. In 1955, at around 20 years old, Noriega received his first intelligence payment from the USA, amounting to $10,700. Noriega had a half-brother working at the Panamanian embassy in Peru. With his brother's help, after graduating from high school, Noriega went to Lima, Peru, to study at the Carrillo's Military Academy. After graduating from military school, Noriega returned home and joined the Panamanian National Guard, becoming an aide to Omar Torrijos, a military strongman of Panama. Noriega became Torrijos' loyal enforcer, carrying out many dirty tasks such as beating, arresting, and harassing members of opposition parties. Torrijos greatly appreciated Noriega's ruthless and decisive behavior. Torrijos sent Noriega to the USA School, run by the USA military in the Canal Zone, to enhance his knowledge in intelligence and psychology. This school trained pro-USA figures in the region. During his studies, Noriega established a closer working relationship with Washington through the school's leadership. He continuously provided intelligence about labor movements in central USA countries to the USA. Noriega's achievements were highly valued by his USA bosses, and then-President Lyndon Johnson remarked that, at 30, Noriega was a valuable asset to the USA and a rising star in the Panamanian military. In 1968, Torrijos launched a military coup and took supreme power in Panama. Almost a year later, before Torrijos could stabilize his power, a group of reserve soldiers initiated a military coup. Noriega safely protected Torrijos and quelled the coup. In recognition of his efforts, Torrijos promoted him to the position of Deputy General of Panama, responsible for intelligence, surveillance, and anti-drug operations. With Noriega's intelligence support, and as an intermediary, Torrijos and President Jimmy Carter signed a treaty in which the USA agreed to return sovereignty of the Canal Zone to Panama in 1999. By the 1970s, during the peak of the Cold War, the USA increasingly relied on the intelligence Noriega provided about revolutionary Central USA countries like Cuba, Nicaragua, and El Salvador. Consequently, his relationship with USA intelligence agencies grew closer. In 1971, the CIA officially listed Noriega as an employee with a high salary of $200,000 per year, along with a $100,000 annual emergency fund that he managed. After 1976, Noriega began reporting directly to George Bush, who was then the CIA director. Once Bush finished his tenure as head of the liaison office in Beijing, George Bush quickly discovered that Noriega had many tricks up his sleeve and was even making deals with hostile countries. Indeed, Noriega was a master of manipulation, not shying away from any means to make money. While he earned from providing intelligence about Cuba to the USA, he also sold thousands of Panamanian passports to Fidel Castro for $5,000 each to support Cuba and the Soviet Union. What troubled George Bush the most was that Noriega was also aiding Colombian drug lords in trafficking drugs into the USA. During the 1970s and 1980s, Colombian drug lords were rising rapidly, with the Medellin cartel, led by Escobar, Blanco, and the Ochoa brothers, being the most prominent. Due to ongoing civil wars in central USA countries such as Colombia, El Salvador, and Guatemala, Medellin cartel leaders needed a new drug transit point. Panama, with its favorable and peaceful location, became a prime target. At that time, Noriega, the head of Panama's anti-drug agency, was solely motivated by money, and the two sides quickly collaborated. The drug lords received Panama customs stamps and hiding places from Noriega. Once, when the Ochoa brothers' sister was kidnapped while transporting goods through Panama, Noriega used his influence to rescue her. A daughter of Escobar, born in Panama, was also given a Panamanian residence by Noriega. According to Escobar's son, Noriega received $5 million from his father to help build a drug empire in Panama. However, Torrijos did not support Noriega's drug trafficking and concealed evidence of Noriega's drug activities from George Bush, frequently criticizing him. Feeling betrayed, Noriega began to view Torrijos as an obstacle to his drug trade and ambitions. In 1981, Torrijos died in a plane crash while on foreign duty, and many suspected it was a scheme orchestrated by Noriega. After Torrijos' death, Noriega naturally became the new king of Panama and was no longer restrained by Torrijos. From then on, Noriega's collaboration with Colombian drug lords became more unrestricted. Panama quickly turned into a major drug transit hub and hotspot for drug lords. Noriega earned $300 million from protection money, bribes and interest through money laundering channels in Europe, even purchasing a large villa in France. George Bush was well aware that Noriega had opened a highway for drug trafficking from Colombia into the USA. He knew that removing Noriega would stop the main channel bringing drugs into the USA. However, he could not act directly because Noriega was very compliant. He only hinted that if Noriega stopped drug trafficking, he would increase the intelligence budget for him. Nevertheless, the cooperation between Noriega and Colombian drug lords, like Escobar, was not smooth. Once Escobar sent $1.4 million worth of drugs through Panama into the USA, and Noriega collected $1 million in fees. This strained the relationship between Noriega and Escobar, leading Noriega to turn against him and start an anti-drug campaign in Panama, shutting down many of Escobar's operations. As a result, their relationship completely collapsed. Former USA Secretary of State under Reagan, George Shultz, said that you can never completely buy Noriega, you can only hire him. However, the close relationship between Noriega and the USA did not last long. Between 1920 and 1982, the USA earned more than $45 billion from the Panama Canal, while Panama received only $1.1 billion. Noriega grew increasingly dissatisfied with the meager earnings from his drug trafficking and intelligence operations. Previously, Noriega might have kept silent, but after years of dictatorship, he began to openly disregard George Bush. For instance, he ruthlessly eliminated political rivals, oppressed the people, and declared election results invalid. More importantly, the world knew that Noriega was a product of USA training, and his behavior was completely contrary to what USA prided themselves on regarding democracy and freedom. A valuable asset had now become a burden on America's reputation and on George Bush personally. After George Bush became president in 1989, he secretly sent agents to accuse Noriega of drug trafficking and extortion in the USA. Upon learning that he was being indicted by the USA in their own country, Noriega felt humiliated and launched a large-scale anti-USA campaign. From February 1988 to May 1989, there were 600 incidents of tension involving USA military personnel and their families in Panama. Subsequently, George Bush invoked a clause in the Habuna-Varilla Treaty that allowed the USA military to conduct unlimited military exercises in the Canal Zone. The USA troops stationed in Panama conducted a series of small exercises to warn Noriega, but Noriega was not intimidated. Firstly, since his youth, he had aspired to become a psychologist, and as an adult had written a textbook on psychological warfare, becoming an expert in the field of psychological operations. Secondly, after years of being the ruler of Panama, his ego had grown to an extraordinary level, and before being overthrown by the USA, Noriega had nearly reached the zenith of his power. During one of the USA military exercises, Noriega suddenly appeared with his entourage, walked straight to shake hands with the USA soldiers, and said into the camera, "Here I am, arrest me." On December 15, 1989, Noriega proactively declared war on the USA. He stepped onto the podium brandishing a large knife and shouting, "We will sit on both sides of the canal and watch the enemy's corpses float out to sea." The next day, Panama's National Defense Forces accidentally killed a USA Marine beat an officer and threatened to rape his wife. George Bush could no longer tolerate the situation, as the Panama Canal contributed 10% of America's total trade volume and could not be allowed to be lost. On December 20th, 1989 at dawn in Panama City, 27,000 heavily armed USA troops launched an attack on the small nation. This was the largest military operation by the USA since the Vietnam War. The invasion had nothing to do with justice and bore a sarcastic name, Operation Just Cause. According to statistics, the USA invasion of Panama cost the lives of 23 USA soldiers and 3 USA civilians, while about 150 Panamanian soldiers and around 500 Panamanian civilians were killed. Noriega had long been the target of a manhunt by USA Delta Force. After the war broke out, Special Forces, Air Force units, and particularly Delta Force all came to confront him. Delta Force raided 42 locations that could be Noriega's hiding places, but did not find him. Eventually, a close bodyguard of Noriega revealed his hiding place at the Vatican Embassy. The USA military quickly surrounded the location to prevent reporters from eavesdropping inside the embassy with long microphones. The USA military used loudspeakers to create a sound barrier. On December 27th, the USA military's Psychological Operations Team 4 joined the campaign to persuade Noriega to surrender. This team consisted of young men in their early 20s. They changed the broadcast sound to heavy metal rock music and played it continuously 24 hours a day, as rock music could make people irritable and continuous play could prevent Noriega from getting any rest. The ironic thing is that Noriega later recalled that the room he was in was so soundproof that he could not hear the rock music at all. Instead, the 24-hour continuous heavy metal rock music drove the embassy staff nearly insane. At 9 p.m. on January 3, 1990, with no escape left, Noriega emerged from the Vatican Embassy, wearing his tattered 4-star general uniform, and officially surrendered to the USA military. His only request was to wear his general's uniform and to participate in the surrender ceremony as the head of state. However, Noriega was mistaken if he thought the USAs would organize such a ceremony. Delta Force and the USA Drug Enforcement Administration escorted him onto a C-130 cargo plane, ordered him to remove his uniform, and instead wear the gray prisoner uniform worn by USA detainees. They also gave him a new name, Prisoner No. 41586. The USA showed Noriega that in their eyes he was just an ordinary criminal. They were not there to fight, but merely to punish a traitor. Noriega was swiftly flown back to the USA and was immediately put on trial in Miami. The jury was instructed not to consider the political aspects of the case, meaning they did not need to worry about whether the USA had the right to invade Panama, arrest Noriega, or try him in the USA, and only needed to quickly convict him. In the end, Noriega was sentenced to 40 years in prison. In 2007, he was released early and then extradited to France for further imprisonment, where he served an additional year. He was eventually returned to Panama to continue serving his sentence and died in prison on May 29, 2017, due to illness. Noriega was undoubtedly guilty, but he was Panamanian and his crimes should have been judged by the people of Panama. Why did the USA military arrest him and bring him straight to the USA for trial? Even though Panama is a small country, but it has sovereignty that should not be violated. Despite the poverty of the Panamanian people, they should not be considered second-class citizens of the USA. The United Nations condemned the USA for violating international law, but global protests against the USA achieved little. The USA has Delta Force Special Forces and the most powerful military force in the world. If they truly want to defeat someone, they will do so. Plainly, this was a political trial, purely retribution. A killing the chicken to scare the monkey tactic, and an ambition to control global order. After Noriega's overthrow, corruption and security issues continued to plague Panama. This central USA country of 3.9 million people once again became a haven for money laundering, tax evasion, and drug trafficking. What do you think of this story? Please leave your thoughts below so everyone can see. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support me. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.